My name is Maria Sinclair, and I wish I could say the betrayal came out of nowhere, that I was blindsided, heartbroken, broken into 1,000 naive little pieces. But no, that would be giving Jason far too much credit. Betrayal doesn't always walk through the front door. Sometimes it grows roots in silence. It shows up in missed dinners, in sudden password changes, in the way a man starts calling you bossy for reminding him to pay the vendors. It begins with laughter that doesn't include you anymore, with a phone turned upside down on the table, with the way he stopped reaching for my hand when he thought I was asleep. Jason and I had been together for 7 years. 3 of those, we built a company together. Synapse Tech. A sleek name for something messy beneath the surface. I handled the UX, the user architecture, the painful wireframes, and the early sleepless nights coding in borrowed coffee shops. He handled investors, the pitch decks, the charm. We were a perfect pair on paper, but paper burns easily. The night it happened, I remember clearly I was supposed to be at a conference in Austin, but the keynote was canceled due to a storm. I didn't text him. I thought it'd be cute to surprise him. We hadn't had much time together lately. I wanted to cook dinner. I even bought his favorite wine on the way home, a ridiculous French vintage he said made him feel grown. I pulled into the driveway and noticed something strange. A red Tesla, parked crooked, still humming. We didn't own a Tesla. Neither did our neighbors. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a friend, a meeting, some team member needing advice. But my stomach, it already knew. I opened the door to our home and stepped into silence. Lights dim, music faint. I heard a giggle. Her giggle. It wasn't mine. That sound never belonged to me. The bedroom door was slightly open. The sheets, I saw them before I saw them. Twisted, familiar, and wrong. Jason's back, her leg draped over him, my robe sliding off her shoulder. I stood there, not crying, not screaming, just calculating. She saw me first, froze, pulled the blanket up. Jason turned his head lazily, like I was the inconvenience in their perfect little fantasy. Maria, he blinked. You're home, that's what he said, not an apology, not a scramble to explain. Just a tone like I'd forgotten to knock before entering my own life. I looked at him, at her, and all I could say was interesting. He stood up, no shame, no pants, like he still owned the room. Look, this was going to happen eventually. You've been so distant. Cold. Everything with you is a meeting, a deadline, a strategy with Sasha. It's just easy, Sasha. Her name was Sasha. I let the silence drag. I needed to feel it all. The sting, the heat, the humiliation. Because if you skip the pain, you miss the fuel. You're right, I said slowly, calmly. This was going to happen eventually. He looked surprised. Wait, are you not mad? I smiled. Cold professional. No, I'm just taking notes. I turned and walked away, left the wine on the counter, didn't even close the front door behind me, let the wind do what it wanted. I spent that night in a hotel, didn't cry. I opened my laptop, pulled up the cap table of our company, and stared. Jason and I each held 40%. The rest was in early angel investors and a small fund we brought in to expand operations last year. Sasha, the intern turned, whatever, held nothing. I knew what they'd do, slowly squeeze me out, reposition me as a co-founder emeritus, use my work while scrubbing my name, the classic startup cleanse tech. Boys had been doing it for decades. They just usually waited until the acquisition. But they forgot one thing. I wasn't built for exits. I was built for structure, for patterns, for timing. I spent the next 2 days meeting with my lawyer, revisiting every clause in our partnership agreement. I made a list. People. Jason never bothered to thank developers. I stayed up with debugging their code. Marketers. I coached through panic attacks, investors who took my call when Jason sent them straight to voicemail. I didn't need to win, I just needed leverage. Chum. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was pretending I didn't care, showing up at the office with the same red lipstick and tailored black coat, sitting across from them in glass-walled meeting rooms while Sasha giggled over UX. She barely understood. Jason started calling me robotic in board meetings. We're leaning into more emotional branding now, he'd say, looking pointedly at Sasha like she was the oracle of human connection. They were getting bolder, reckless, and I was just watching, because in war, the first to move is often the first to bleed. And I had no intention of bleeding for anyone ever again. They called me forgettable, not to my face. Never that bold, but in the way they smiled too long at each other during meetings. in the way Jason would glance at Sasha when I spoke as if translating my competence into something cute she could digest. "She's just intense," he told the team once when I questioned a marketing proposal riddled with errors. "That's Maria. All numbers, no nuance." It was brilliant, really. Dismiss a woman not by attacking her ideas, but by stripping her of softness. Reframe clarity as coldness, logic as a flaw. The new hires bought into it. They saw Sasha as approachable, Jason as visionary. And me, I became the girl who used to matter, the one in the background of company launch photos, a living watermark. I didn't argue, I took notes. The day I officially disappeared was the morning Jason pitched the new direction to the board. He stood tall, polished in a navy jacket he once swore he hated, Sasha at his side pretending not to glow. "Our brand has grown stale," he declared. "Our audience is younger now, more emotional. We need to shift from data-driven UX to experience-first design, human-first gut instinct, a euphemism for guesswork wrapped in buzzwords." I sat at the far end of the conference table in the very chair where I'd once signed our incorporation documents. My name had been taken off the press releases, my face removed from the website, but legally I was still co-founder, still on the board, still watching. He finished the pitch with a smug smile. Then came the real play. "I propose we restructure the leadership model, elevate Sasha to Chief Experience Officer, and reposition Maria as Advisor Emeritus." It was a calculated blow. He didn't say fire her, he said honor her, repackage the exile in silk, make it look like gratitude. The room nodded. No one made eye contact with me. "Any objections?" Jason asked. Eyes already on the next slide. I raised my hand. His jaw twitched. "I object," I said calmly, "because that's not how this works." He scoffed. "Maria, we talked about this." "No," I cut him off. "You talked. You rehearsed a scene and assumed the audience would applaud. But here's the issue. I co-own 40% of this company. I co-wrote this charter. So unless you want this meeting to turn into a lawsuit, I suggest we stay on agenda. Silence. The kind that doesn't hum, it cuts." He blinked. Sasha shifted beside him, suddenly unsure where to look. I leaned back in my chair and smiled. "Let's proceed." After that, I became the ghost of Synapse Tech. Still there, but fading. They stopped copying me on internal memos, scheduled meetings in rooms I wasn't invited to, gave Sasha press time podcast interviews, keynotes I used to deliver. Jason tried to push a vote to reduce my shares, arguing I was inactive, but the clause I wrote 3 years ago stopped him cold. Founding shares cannot be diluted without unanimous consent. He was boxed in by my own words. I wasn't angry, I was fascinated. Watching him flail behind closed doors while pretending to lead in public, like a man juggling knives while bleeding out quietly. I made myself small on purpose, because attention kills strategy. Instead, I started visiting a certain office on West 57th Street. Minimalist concrete walls, a single plant no one remembered to water. It belonged to Elodie Strathmore, quiet deadly. She ran a boutique fund for women-led startups. She'd once offered to invest in Synapse Tech, and Jason had laughed. Cute fund, not real scale. I remembered that smirk, so did she. When I walked into her office, I didn't ask for revenge. I asked for backing Elodie, I said, placing the NDA on her desk. "I don't want the company back. I want to buy it." She blinked. "You want to take Synapse Tech private?" "No," I smiled. "I want to take it from him while he's still smiling." We worked quietly. Elodie's fund began purchasing shares from the smaller investors, ones Jason had bullied with vision talk but never followed through on. Within 2 months, I had regained control of 22% through proxies. I had my hands back on the levers. He didn't even notice. He was too busy uploading selfies with Sasha from visionary summits. They looked happy, but then again, so do flies right before they hit the glass. I returned to the office one afternoon in early spring. No fanfare, just me in black heels clicking down marble floors. I helped design. Sasha was in the lobby trying to lead a tour for new hires. She saw me and froze. I kept walking. Jason was in the executive lounge pitching to 2 angel investors over sparkling water. He looked up. "Maria, Jason, you're, back?" I sat down across from him, pulled out a folder. "This is a notice of change in executive structure. Effective immediately, I'm reinstated as co-CEO." He blinked. "That's not... You can't just... I said I just did." He looked at the papers, then at the stunned investors. "You're making a mistake," he said under his breath. "No," I whispered. "You made it. The night you brought her into our bed." I handed him a final envelope, inside a printout, the front page of Tech Radar. Headline: Anonymous Fund quietly acquires control of Synapse. Tech rumors swirl of founders return. Jason didn't read it. He didn't have to. His face said enough. He had played me for forgettable. But I had learned one thing from watching him for 7 years. If they write you off as a ghost, haunt them properly. They say the best revenge is success. But I've always believed the best revenge is public, not screaming, not slapping, not tabloid scandals or exposés. I didn't want him canceled, I wanted him irrelevant. Jason had always loved the stage, the applause, the lights, the endless performance of being admired. So I gave him what he craved most, an audience, and then I turned it on him. The plan was almost too poetic. Synapse Tech's newest product, called Pulse, was about to launch. It was a wellness meets productivity app powered by AI behavioral analysis. In other words, a branded attempt at reading emotions and maximizing efficiency dressed in pastel gradients and minimalist UI. It was Sasha's pet project. She had called it an app that understands your feelings when no one else does. The irony nearly killed me. The launch event was set at the Hayden Hall, a gleaming amphitheater in Tribeca, with a skyline backdrop and room for 2,000 guests. Investors, tech journalists, influencers, venture capitalists, and employees all gathered under one roof. Jason and Sasha had positioned themselves as the power couple of emotional tech front-page darlings, with features in TechCrunch and Fast Company. There were whispers of acquisition offers, a Forbes under 35 piece in the works. They were winning, but in every fairy tale someone forgets the original queen, and I was never one for glass slippers. I prefer steel heels. I hadn't spoken publicly in over a year. My silence had become a brand of its own, mysterious, stoic, laser-focused, as Elodie liked to call it. So when I requested to close the product launch event with a few words as co-founder and returning executive, nobody questioned it. They were too intrigued. The room was cathedral quiet when I stepped onto the stage. Black pantsuit, no jewelry, hair pulled back like a blade. Jason sat in the front row, Sasha beside him, holding hands like royalty. I stood at the podium and looked out into the sea of faces. I could feel the cameras on me, the press already composing headlines in their heads. I let the silence stretch. "I want to thank you all," I began, voice calm, poised, "for being part of this journey. Synapse Tech has always been about connection between humans and systems, between dreams and delivery. But lately it seems we've confused noise with depth, affection with performance, vision with vanity." A ripple moved through the crowd. Jason shifted. I turned to look at Sasha and smiled. Then I walked toward her slowly, like gravity had changed. I extended a hand. She hesitated, then stood. I leaned in and kissed her full on the mouth. Gasps, flashes, then stillness. I pulled back. She blinked, stunned. A rabbit in the glare of something bigger than headlights, something ancient, like justice. The crowd didn't know whether to applaud or freeze. So I spoke. "I finally understand what he sees in you," I said softly into the mic, still holding her hand. "You're easy." Silence fell like glass, breaking in slow motion. Jason stood face pale, about to speak. I turned to him, "But easy doesn't scale, and neither do you." Sing. The next morning, the kiss was everywhere. Clips went viral within hours. Founding queen reclaims her throne with savage stage kiss. Tech Weekly. Sasha kissed Jason, dismissed Synapse. Tech drama goes public, BuzzNet. Maria Sinclair breaks her silence, and the internet wired. Every tech podcast had an opinion. Every media outlet wanted an interview. Even the late-night talk shows picked it up. One headline read, "Forget Succession. This is real." But it wasn't just theatrics. It was strategy. While the public devoured the drama, I moved in silence. 2 key board members who had been on the fence about Jason's leadership finally called me. "You've got instincts," one of them said, "and spine. Something this company forgot it needed." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Within 48 hours, I had the votes to call an emergency session. Jason didn't even show up. I found him 2 days later alone in the lounge of the Park Hyde Hotel, swirling bourbon and pretending not to be watching CNN run clips of my speech. He looked smaller, like someone had deflated his edges. I sat down without asking. He glanced up. "You got what you wanted," he said quietly. No, I replied. I got what you forgot was mine. He exhaled. You didn't have to humiliate her. I didn't humiliate her, I said, leaning forward. I revealed her. He flinched. Besides, I added, she's not the one I wanted to kiss. His eyes flickered with something that almost looked like regret, but regret is cheap when you're no longer useful. That night, I took down the last piece of him from the company, his About Us photo. I replaced it with an image of our original design sketch. The one I made on this back of a receipt in a coffee shop when Synapse Tech was just an idea, I whispered to myself in parking lots. And beneath it, I wrote, built on clarity, powered by silence, reclaimed by the one they forgot to fear. I didn't go viral because I kissed a woman. I went viral because I kissed back what they tried to steal. My name, my dignity, my narrative. They thought I would crumble in private. I resurrected in public. Because in a world that worships loud liars, nothing is more terrifying than a woman who tells the truth quietly. Power doesn't scream. It signs papers. It walks into boardrooms wearing silence like armor. It watches while others perform, self-destruct, scramble to be liked, and then it takes the room without raising its voice. I didn't want Jason destroyed, I wanted him dismissed. There's a difference. One is loud and messy, begging for validation. The other, surgical, undeniable, final. The emergency board session was held in the same room where Jason once tried to relegate me to advisor emeritus mahogany table. Frosted windows, the scent of expensive coffee, and old mistakes. Only this time, I controlled the room. The numbers had shifted quietly, elegantly, just like I had. Elodie's fund now held 22% of Synapse Tech through layered shell entities. Combined with my founding shares, I had majority voting control. The rest were picked off with small nudges, conversations over wine, reminders of Jason's broken promises, his reckless press appearances, the quiet exodus of senior developers he never noticed leaving. By the time Jason arrived late and smug, the ink was already dry. He entered like he still belonged. He didn't. He tried to take the head seat. I had already taken it. His eyes scanned the room, noting the changed arrangement, the people no longer nodding on cue. His fingers tapped the table, a nervous tick he hadn't outgrown. What's this? He asked. Another one of Maria's little power plays. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. A man across from me, Harold Weston, investor, since year one, cleared his throat. Jason, this is a majority vote session. We've reviewed the motion to restructure the executive team. It passed. Jason blinked. What motion? Harold slid the document across the table. Jason didn't even read it. He laughed, a brittle, desperate laugh that cracked midair. This is ridiculous, he snapped. I built this company. I pitched the first round. I made the contacts. I finally spoke. No, Jason. We built it. I designed the infrastructure. I built the systems. You charmed VCs at parties. There's a difference. His face twisted. You're just bitter because I moved on. I smiled. No, Jason, I'm not bitter. I'm busy time. The final clause was the one that broke him: termination without severance for cause breach of fiduciary duty, improper personal conduct, conflict of interest. His relationship with Sasha was never disclosed. His use of company funds for off-site inspiration retreats now had receipts. Thank you, junior accountant with a conscience. Jason stood, chest heaving, fingers clenching air like he could throttle the vote itself. You'll regret this, he hissed. No, I said, rising. I already regretted trusting you. This is just alignment. He stormed out, slammed the door. Silence followed. Then a slow clap from Sasha. She stood at the far wall, arms crossed, eyes sharp as ever. Well played, she said. I looked at her. She wasn't trembling. She wasn't humiliated. She was calculating. Of course she was. I'd never underestimated her. Jason was careless. Sasha was clinical. I suppose I'm next, she asked. I walked toward her. No, I said, you're going to resign. She arched a brow. And if I don't, I handed her a folder. Inside screenshots, emails, recordings. Proof she had leaked proprietary design elements to a rival company under the table. I leaned in. You're not stupid, Sasha. You know how this works. You walk away quietly, or I walk these to the press. Her jaw tightened. You kissed me in front of the world, she said. Was that just strategy? No, I whispered. That was goodbye. By the end of the week, both Jason and Sasha were gone. No statements, no scandals, just absence. And I stayed quiet. Let the public speculate, let the media spin their own myths. I didn't feed the fire. I built a house from its ashes. I restructured Synapse Tech with surgical precision, departments flattened, pay gaps closed. The toxic culture that had festered under Jason's charm was dissected piece by piece. But the biggest change wasn't structural, it was tonal. We no longer sold aspiration, we sold accountability. Our new motto, clarity before code. It trended within days. There was one last thing left to do. The penthouse suite. Jason's old corner office, I walked in alone. The air still smelled like cologne and ego. The desk was massive, mahogany imported. Paid for by company funds, disguised as client hospitality. I didn't throw anything, I didn't burn it. I opened the drawer and found a photo. Me and Jason year one. Standing in front of our first office space, all exposed brick and unearned hope. He was smiling. I wasn't. I put the photo back. Then I placed a card on the desk. Simple white, no logo, just a message. You tried to build a future without me, now I decide who gets to enter it. I moved my office to the third floor. Smaller glass walls, shared space, because power doesn't need a throne, it just needs vision and memory. Jason emailed me 2 weeks later, subject line just talk. He wanted a meeting, said he had new ideas, and was in a more grounded place now. He used words like alignment, healing, and mutual respect. I didn't reply, not out of malice, out of mercy. Some men deserve silence more than revenge, and the cruelest thing you can do to someone who craves control is show them they're no longer even part of the narrative. There's a strange silence that comes after winning, not relief, not celebration, just space. As if the air around you has been holding its breath for years and now it finally exhales. That was me, not standing on a stage, not holding a trophy, but sipping coffee in a quiet office, watching the sun catch the edge of a design I once sketched on a napkin. Synapse Tech was finally mine. But legacy isn't about possession, it's about precision. And I wasn't here to reclaim what was lost. I was here to redefine what they thought I would never become. It started with a letter, not from Jason, not from Sasha, from a young engineer named Evelyn. She had joined 6 months ago, back when the company was still a performance built for men in tailored suits, and women expected to smile through interruptions. Her letter was simple. Thank you for being the reason I stayed in tech. It stopped me cold because I had forgotten what it was like to see myself through someone else's survival. I called her into my office. She looked nervous. You wrote this, I asked. She nodded. Why? Evelyn hesitated. Then, because you made space. And no one made space for you? I stared at her. That one sentence shattered something in me. Because it was true. No one had made space for me. Not my professors who said I was too intense. Not the VCs who shook Jason's hand first. Not the journalists who called Sasha the heart of the company while ignoring the code I wrote in my apartment at 2 a.m. No one had made space, so I built my own. Now it was time to leave the door open for someone else. I launched Project Legacy that week, a full-scale initiative within Synapse Tech, designed to mentor and fund women in tech from interns to founders. Not a press move, not a diversity box to tick. A structural shift. For every dollar Synapse Tech spent on advertising, we matched it in scholarships and startup seed capital for women-owned AI initiatives. Every single senior male executive was required to sponsor a junior female mentee, real sponsorship tracked by deliverables, not LinkedIn platitudes. We didn't announce it in a flashy way, we let the results speak. Within 4 months, turnover dropped, innovation doubled, our team 58% women. Sasha would have hated it. One afternoon, I walked the floor. No clipboard, no entourage, just me. I stopped at Evelyn's desk. She looked up startled. You busy? Just debugging a heartbeat loop. Can I show you something? She followed me to the rooftop terrace, the one Jason used for private parties and shallow networking. I had turned it into a greenhouse, quiet, lush, alive. We stood in silence. This used to be where they made deals over whiskey, I said. Now it's where ideas grow. She smiled. I still can't believe it, she said. You went through all that and still stayed. I looked out over the skyline. I didn't stay, I replied. I outlived them. Jason texted me again, short-measured, a few lines of diluted regret. He said he was consulting now, helping young visionaries. He asked if I'd be open to coffee. I almost laughed, not because I hated him, because he still didn't understand. He thought I won because I took something from him, but I didn't. I won because I no longer needed anything from him. Sasha tried to re-enter the spotlight through a podcast. She told the host I was cold, calculated, impossible to work with. I didn't respond. Let her fill the void with projections. Let the world see the difference between noise and presence. Our company Christmas party that year was different. No flashing lights, no manufactured speeches, just team time and tables full of real food, not photo ops. Midway through, Evelyn stood and tapped her glass. She raised a toast to the woman who didn't just reclaim what was hers. She made it mean something. People clapped. I didn't. I sat still, because that was the first time I realized I was no longer surviving. I was shaping. I went home that night to a quiet apartment. No Jason. No staged affection. No curated illusion of love. Just my own reflection in the hallway mirror. Tired, older, sharper. I took out the old photo, me and Jason year one. I tore it in half, not in rage, in release. Then I lit a match, watched it curl into nothing, and whispered, "You were the spark." But I was always the fire. The next morning, I walked into the lobby of Synapse Tech. A young woman approached me, a candidate maybe. First time in the building, she smiled nervously. "Are you Maria Sinclair?" I nodded. Her eyes lit up. "You're a legend." I paused, then replied, "No, I'm the blueprint."